This week has just been full of new experiences for me. From working my first pre-installed burial vault, to doing a cremation where the urn was placed in the foundation of a headstone, and then today, I arrived at the cemetery and found out that the family has requested a false setup. A false setup is done when the grave is either unstable, was dug in the wrong place, wasn't called in to be dug, or if the area that the pallbearers need to walk to get the casket to the graveside is unsafe. For today's circumstance, the grave is at the very top of the hill, and some of the family members are elderly, and the funeral home requested us to set up at the bottom of the hill so they could look up towards the grave but be safe and sound at the bottom. To set up this service, we start by setting out our equipment where the cemetery has asked us to set it. They will be setting the tent over our equipment, and the vault will be placed just off to the side. And today we actually have a concrete grave liner, which is not a burial vault. It's a burial container that helps maintain the grave above where the vault is sitting. Over time, as the casket deteriorates, the ground will begin to sink, and that causes more maintenance for the cemetery to come backfill and lay new grass seed, which is the primary reason that most cemeteries require grave liners or burial vaults. Once the equipment is set for where the casket will sit, we begin to place the grave liner next to the setup so that when the service is over, myself, the cemetery crew, and family members, if they would like to help, can place the casket into the grave liner. I will keep the lid off to the side on the buggy, so whenever the service is done, I can close the vault and load the vault back onto the buggy with the casket inside. I will then drive the buggy around the corner and up to the high side of the hilltop. That way I can come down towards the grave rather than having to climb the hill with the weight of the grave liner on the buggy. The next step of the process is to load up the buggy with all the things we will need to create a stable platform over the grave to support the boom. Luckily for this setup, there were no headstones in the way for where I want to back the buggy to the grave. So this process is as simple as laying down some boards, some 4x4s, and some aluminum boards to give a nice support system for the buggy. Today we are just above a section which is notorious for having troubles with grave diggers and vaultmen. It may not look too rough in the video, but it is pretty steep, and if you don't have the right equipment, headstones can be broken, vaults can be lost, and just disasters in general are bound to happen, especially in inclement weather. Luckily today I'm using a Logan vault handler from Axis Corporation, and this machine is just great overall. It's got a great parking brake, the outriggers hold nice and steady, and it has hydraulic lifts in the rear that can help stabilize the buggy when on a hillside such as this. Our equipment is set, the platform is ready, now we just need to sit back and wait for the procession to arrive. The service has concluded, and the casket now rests at the bottom of the grave liner. We can now place the lid over the casket, load the grave liner onto the buggy, and take it to its final resting place. This family chose not to stay for the entirety of the interment. To lower this grave liner, I line the buggy up with my support boards on the sides of the grave, make sure the parking brake is on, and put down my hydraulic posts for extra support. We can then push the burial vault over the top of the grave and slowly lower it down, making sure it doesn't catch the edges of the grave walls. Since there was no headstone at the end of the grave, I was able to drive the buggy right up to the end rather than coming on from the side, which can be more dangerous on a hillside. Now the grave has been filled and this service is complete.